The preseason is off and running, and so are we. Lot to get to on this Tuesday, including the recent comments from Andrew Wiggins saying he felt forced into uniform. How could this impact Kyrie Irving? Meanwhile, Deandre Ayton is still waiting to get paid. Woj joins us with the latest on the Suns' reluctance to give him a rookie extension. Plus, we reveal the best preseason dunks in NBA history. And a final farewell to a Lakers legend as Pau Gasol retires. Get the rafters ready. The jump starts now. Kicking things off strong, we have Ramona Shelburne and Kendrick Perkins joining us for the next hour. And guys, we'll get to you in just a bit, but we begin with the contract talks between Phoenix and their star big man. Deandre Ayton is coming off 3 straight seasons, putting up at least 14 and 10, and was a key part of the team's finals run last season. The 23-year-old is eligible for a 5-year, $172.5 million extension with escalators that could reach $207 million. But they've yet to reach an agreement with an October 18th deadline looming. Now joining us with the latest, Adrian Wojnarowski. And Woj, what can you tell us about where the contract talks are at this moment?
Cassidy, those contract talks between Deandre Ayton and the Suns are stalled. He wants a max contract, believes he deserves a max contract, #1 overall pick in 2018, and you've seen him, steadily get better, a dominant player on both ends of the court for the Suns, and his intentions are not to accept anything less than that full max. And right now, Phoenix and I think Robert Sarver, that organization is essentially telling them, we don't think you are worth a max contract. Now, these are negotiations, and there are 2 weeks left. October 18th is the deadline for rookie extensions, and you've seen players like Luka Doncic, Trae Young, Michael Porter Jr., Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, as part of that 2018 draft class, get maximum contract extensions. And there was an expectation around the league that Deandre Ayton would already have this done. But Phoenix and Robert Sarver, who has had a history of people questioning his commitment financially and otherwise to building a sustainable winner. This is a team that got to the NBA Finals last year. And now they've got 2 weeks left, or they face the possibility of going into this season and maybe having some acrimony with their star young player and the relationship he built with Monty Williams over the last couple of years, which has really been a big part of his development, have a lot of those things tested without an extension in place.
Okay, so without an extension, just further detail for me the implications of him not signing the rookie extension before the October 18th deadline, specifically for Ayton.
Well, he could become a restricted free agent next summer, which means the Suns could match any offer and keep Deandre Ayton. But as an organization, you don't want it to come to that, because that creates, acrimony with the player. It creates mistrust. And also, listen, Deandre Ayton could sign his qualifying offer next year and get paid $16 million for the season, and then in the following year become an unrestricted free agent, which is a nightmare scenario for Phoenix. And so they've got a couple weeks here to figure this out. But Deandre Ayton's intentions are, and his representatives, that he's going to get a max contract, whether he gets that from the Suns before that October 18th deadline, or he gets it next year, either with Phoenix or another team.
Quickly, forward Mikal Bridges also eligible for the rookie extension. What can you tell us about his status?
Yeah, Mikal Bridges is an important young player on this Suns team. Really one of the best overall young players on that Suns team. And again, they've had talks with Phoenix. They're not there yet on an extension. And these are really the two cornerstone players, along with Devin Booker. When you look forward to this Phoenix organization post Chris Paul, who'll be 37 years old this year, it's imperative for Robert Sarver to have both these players locked up. And Mikal Bridges is another player. There's going to be a lot of interest in the marketplace if he has to go into restricted free agency. I think people see him as a $20 million a year plus player.
Absolutely. For more on Woj's reporting on this story, check out his article on ESPN.com. Thanks, Woj.
Thanks, Cass.
All right, look, coming off of his best argument for the extension after a solid regular season last year, Ayton increased his points, rebounds, and field goal percentage during the playoffs while playing over 36 minutes a game. We now bring back Perk and Ramona. Perk, what are your thoughts on the contract negotiations between the Suns and Ayton right now and where they stand?
It's disturbing to me, okay? And here's why. The big man never gets the love that they supposed to. They always get underappreciated. And for the simple fact that, look, we understand Luka Doncic and Trae Young, they're in a different atmosphere right now for us, you know, them making all-star games, all NBA teams and things to that nature. But when you start to dive in, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and Michael Porter Jr., look, both of those guys deserve that money. But both of those guys haven't made an all-star team. None of those guys made an all-NBA team. And when you look at the body of work that Deandre Ayton put in, just in the postseason alone, and I take you back to the Denver Nuggets series, where, to me, he outplayed the MVP of our league in Jokic, right, and on both ends of the floor. And so I'm looking at the Phoenix Suns. By the way, I love James Jones. We call him Champ. I think he has done a tremendous job in the front office as a general manager. But Deandre Ayton has earned his money. And here's another point. The Phoenix Suns didn't hesitate to pay Chris Paul $100+ million at 36 years of age. Here it is. You have your number one pick who showed you he's capable of being one of the best young bigs in the league, and now you're hesitating to give him the bag? No, that's not how it works. Give the man his money. He deserved the money, and he's a guy that's going to go out there and get you 20 and 10 a night along with 2 blocks.
Look, this is the Suns saying to Deandre Ayton, you still have to prove something to us. I mean, that's essentially the message that they are saying to him. They can do this extension with him at the end of this season, but that you risk at this point, this is a guy who sacrificed a lot of his own offensive game to buy in as a defensive enforcer for the Suns as they went to the NBA Finals. And it'd be one thing if you said, okay, if they lost in the first round of the Lakers, if they didn't they went to the finals last year. And against Giannis, and we know all the great stats Giannis put up in the finals, he shot 53% against Ayton as a defender, 70% against everybody else on the Suns, okay? He sacrificed his offensive abilities and his role offensively to concentrate on defense. So I hear where you're coming from, Perk, on the big men never get paid. But this is also an organizational issue because Robert Sarver hasn't paid a luxury tax since the 2009-2010 season. That's over a decade. And when you go to the finals, you generally have a team where you're going to have max players and you have to pay the tax. And so if you're trying to undo an organizational reputation or an ownership reputation of not paying top dollar for contending teams, and we go back all the way to Joe Johnson in 2005, like those Steve Nash, Joe Johnson, Sotomayor, like those teams, you go back in Suns history, it's not hard. It's not hard.
Make, miss. It's a make or miss league, baby. That's it.
That's it. It's so
That's it.
dismissive. All right, make distance. The Young Guns for showing off their range last night. Jalen Suggs, Cole Anthony, all hitting from 30+. Ramona, thought to be the norm with the new generation?
I think so. I mean, I like this new young generation. They wear short shorts and they shoot long shots. That's cool. I like it. There's all the young kids.
I'm just mad because I'm not in this generation. Although Doc Rivers and Scott Brooks didn't even allow me to take a 15-footer.
Right. I've seen you launch them sometimes.
I want to see it, Bird. Look at that.
Post-retirement.
Now, Jordan Poole was good last night, by the way. It was just 7 threes.
I'm still thinking about Ramona's bar she just dropped.
True.
Miss distance. Check out Moses Wright spin into the cup, pack it on bowl.
A pull up on that.
Ramona, you think the third Wright brother?
I see where you're going with that.
elevation.
Okay. I like that Bodman. Yeah, I know that's a Bodman line. Yeah.
The graphics sell it for me.
Yeah, two-handed
I'm a fan favorite. Bowl.
Oh, that's
True.
what you call screws out the rim.
See, that is an actual poster. You know, there's some argument. You can make some argument whether or not Anthony Edwards. You gotta give it up.
That's good. I know the graphic is good.
Bomber.
He did work.
Make English. Staying in Staples. Check out this dime from Compazzo. Perk, this is your boy. Remind you of Jason Kidd?
Ooh, I mean, I don't know about, Jason Kidd. That look more.
That's just like that Jason Kidd assist.
Oh, but it bounced a little bit too much. I mean, you know what? Look, people don't realize that those guys actually work on those type of.
I mean, do you see how to curl it around a defender? Woo.
Yeah, you have a certain type of English on.
Yeah.
I'm all about Campazzo. He was, I mean, he has a lot of skill.
He'll play a big role this year.
He has a lot of skill, absolutely, especially let's see what's going on with Jamal Murray. Miss playoffs, first few minutes in mini. Watch Anthony Edwards get the steal. And then this is debatable. Dunk on Brandon Ingram.
Oh!
I mean, that to me, this is what I was saying. Like, this is, I don't necessarily call that a poster. Our producer Nate, he said that's more of like a postcard. But,
I agree. That's postcard.
But it's a good dunk nonetheless.
You got a guy on your hip, and then you big body him and go up right in front of his face with not the opposite hand. That's like LeBron
but it was on his
James
back.
type.
It was on his back, though. That's my.
Yeah, but look how long his arm is.
Look, I'm not trying to take anything away from Anthony Edwards. I'm more trying to make a distinction of what's a poster and what's not. That's all I'm saying.
Look, I would get out of the way. Anthony Edwards,
bottom line.
Get out of the way.
Let me get out of the way and let's talk about the Boston Celtics. They won their preseason opener in thrilling fashion last night. Thrilling for preseason at least. On this Romeo Langford clutch triple. Meanwhile, Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown both played about 25 minutes and combined for 43 points. You hear that, Lakers and Nets? The roster looks close to the same as last year. Here's their expected rotation. This offseason, they picked up Josh Richardson, Dennis Schroeder, Al Horford, Enes Kanter, among other players. Perk, how do you see the C's finishing in the East this year?
They could be easily a top 5 or a top 3 team in the Eastern Conference. I would not be surprised if I see the Boston Celtics, the Brooklyn Nets, the Bucks, or Celtics in the third spot. When you look at the Jays, Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum, we all know what they're capable of doing. Jason Tatum being one of the most prolific scorers in the game today. Jaylen Brown, one of the better two-way, if not the best two-way player in the game today. But let me tell you the key to this. It's Al Horford. People don't realize how valuable Al Horford is to this organization. Not only do the owners and front office love him, but the players love him. His leadership, and we've heard multiple reports from Brad Stevens, from the coaching staff, how Al Horford just looks different. He's moving better. He's playing better. He's shooting the three, and he can mentor Rob Williams as they go along. So I'm looking at the Celtics. Look, we can't sleep on the C's now.
Yeah, they've been targeting this year as the year that Tatum and Brown really take that jump forward. I mean, they had so much early success at getting to the Eastern Conference Finals and so many successes when they were really young, maybe ahead of schedule. But this is the year in terms of age, maturity-wise, becoming veterans in this league. They're still very young, but they're at that stage now where you can take that jump forward to where you're not just an all-star or a good player, but you can be a superstar. And I think this is the year where they're betting on addition by subtraction because now the runway is clear.
Yeah, and it's crazy that, Jason Tatum's only 19 years old. An inside joke with the Celtics. But he is only 23 years old, and Jaylen Brown is 24 years old. So this could be them turning a corner. I think the biggest pickup for them is Ime Udoka. And I think the relationship between him and Jason Tatum and, his ability to communicate with Tatum, maybe get, kind of shed that hard exterior sometimes he has and a little bit shy that he can be. I expect a big year for Jason Tatum. So, Perk, quickly, you have them ahead of the Heat. You're saying one of the three.
No. What I'm saying is I wouldn't be surprised if it was shuffled, right? Like, okay. I wouldn't be surprised if Heat being number 2.
Today. And what can you tell us about Kyrie Irving's status with the Nets now that the team is back in New York?
Cassidy, this was a question we all wondered when the Nets went to San Diego for training camp. Kyrie Irving was able to practice with them, but they returned to Brooklyn this week. And today, Kyrie Irving was not at practice. Head coach Steve Nash had to answer plenty of questions about his starting point guard.
No further update. We support him. We're here for him, and things change and there's a resolution, we're here for them.
Are you worried about the fact that you may not be able to have a full practice with your full team before the regular season?
I'm not really worrying about anything. We're just trying to work every day. So we came in today, had a great practice. We'll do the same tomorrow, and that's kind of where I leave it.
So what can you tell us about, yeah, go ahead, Om.
No, I was going to say, look, Kyrie Irving did not want this to become a distraction, but this has become now a distraction in Brooklyn. Every day this goes forward, Cassidy, because Steve Nash has to answer the question every day. Is Kyrie Irving here? I mean, today he was even asked a question, would you consider moving practices outside of New York City to accommodate your starting point guard because you don't have him in practice to say like New Jersey or Staten Island? And Steve Nash said, no, this is our home. We're going to practice here. We had almost a full group. And so, look, the Nets are going to have to continue to wait on Kyrie Irving for practices and the first preseason game at home at Barclays, which is on Friday against Milwaukee.
Very interesting stuff. Not only are they going to have to be, dealing with all the questions, you're going to have to continue to ask the questions while we try to figure out the answer to the situation around Kyrie Irving. Thank you so much, Om.
Thank you.
Sticking with the Nets, in NBA.com's 20th annual GM survey, 72% of GMs picked the Nets to win the NBA title, followed by 17% of the votes to the Lakers and 10% to the reigning champs. Also, Kevin Durant was picked to win his second career MVP. Let's bring back Perk and Ramona. And Perk, assuming the Nets have their main core healthy, which is a big assumption throughout most of the season, do you think they should be the big favorites?
72%. 72%. Let me tell you what's going on with that, right? The general managers are just hating on the Los Angeles Lakers, okay? I know a few of the GMs, they don't have so much love for LeBron James. They don't have a lot of love for the Anthony Davis situation. They don't have a lot of love for Clutch Sports. And then on top of that, you have Carmelo Anthony for 2 years. Thought that he was done. So he then came back and proving people wrong. Now, look, I'm not saying that the Nets are not going to win the East. I'm not saying that they can't win the NBA championship. But to vote 72% of the GMs voted for them, all this is just pure hate. There's no way around it. They're just hate on the Los Angeles Lakers. Because looking at them on paper, there's nowhere in hell that 50% of them GMs are going to sit up here and say, these guys on paper, when playoffs come around and healthy, that they don't have a chance or a high chance at winning the NBA championship.
Ramona?
I don't know if I go hate. I would say more age discrimination, Perk. I think if you look at the Lakers' big three, they're just older. I mean, Anthony Davis is young still, but I think it's just more like, who do you think has a better chance of being healthy at the end of the year? Last year, the Lakers LeBron wasn't healthy, AD wasn't healthy. Russ has been healthy, but he wasn't there. And we don't know what the fit's going to be like. I think it'll be pretty good, but in Brooklyn, we didn't see a whole lot of the big three together, but even when they just had two, they were really good last year. And so I think there's the only thing, if we get to a finals, if it's Brooklyn and LA, which there's a lot of ifs and there's a lot of season before that would happen, I might take the Lakers though, because who guards Anthony Davis in that series? If it's Brooklyn and LA, I still just Anthony Davis to me is the ultimate weapon that nobody has an answer for.
Cassidy, Ramona's and Russell Westbrook are not old. Those guys are still in their prime. I think LeBron take a back seat. Tell me who's going to stop Anthony Davis and Russell Westbrook in the pick? Who's going to stop?
Yeah, and not to mention, forget Giannis in eating the 50 piece. Maybe he should have got a 100 piece afterwards. Because did we just forget that the man was the MVP of the finals?
I don't think anyone forgot it. I think people are just thinking who's going to stop, three of the best one-on-one players in Kyrie, KD, and James Harden, and giving them the credit.
They should be the favorites. They should.
Regardless, we'll find out as the season goes along. Meanwhile, NBA GMs also thought the Miami Heat had the best offseason, receiving 47% of the vote, while the Lakers got 17%.
Now that's interesting. The
Former
Lakers
Raptor Kyle Lowry was voted to have the biggest impact on his new team. The Heat took on the Hawks last night, beating them handedly by 26. And Lowry made his debut, hitting his first shot, but Tyler Hero was the big story, scoring 26 points in 26 minutes. Ramona, how dangerous can this Heat team be?
Well, I think they could be a very dangerous team just because of the ability defensively. This could be an all-time Lowry and Bam Adebayo out there. They're talent-wise, offensively, I would say Brooklyn, of course, is going to be way ahead of everybody. But defensively, give Spo and those guys a chance to scheme in a 7-game playoff series. That's a very dangerous team. I am surprised though the Lakers got 17% of GM votes in the best offseason, because Perk, I know what you're saying. There is a lot of hate is a strong word, but I would say there's a lot.
I mean,
people don't want to give them a lot of love, right?
But they made a lot of moves.
They made a lot of moves, and I think around the league there's a lot of skepticism about the Westbrook trade. Now, you and I personally think it's going to work, but around the league, if you talk to GMs, there's a questioning of that. And so is the 17% for the way they filled out the roster, for all the Kendrick Nunns and Wayne Ellingtons that they got? I don't know, but that's interesting. They got the second place votes there.
Miami Heat are my sleepers, my dark horse to actually win the championship.
Mm-hmm. Oh.
This is a team two years ago that went to the finals, and now you add a veteran floor general in Kyle Lowry, a guy that brings everything to the game of basketball.
Well, Perk, we can't. You're going in and out.
By the way, fits in with the.
You're going in and out for just a bit, but I do want to make one correction there. It was 2 seasons ago, because it was actually still just a year ago that.
And the Lakers and the Heat were the teams that had the shortest turnaround, Cass.
It's crazy.
So, look, if you close your eyes, it's like last year didn't even happen.
And the Warriors on top by 4. Curry defended by Luka.
Not this year.
Sear White.
Not this year. Those are the calls right there.
It makes me think of that Hangover quote. Not up in here. Yesterday, Steph said he was confused about the new rules, and that was before this. Ramona, do you like the new rule changes?
Yes. I mean, basically, the new rule is non-basketball moves are not going to get fouls called this year. I mean, that's not a basketball move. He's just trying to get a foul.
Yeah, and look, Steph was asked about it because he was one of the examples that they used.
Trae Young, James Harden.
Look, it's cleaning up the game. It has to be a productive move. It was.
Oh, I was shooting. The basket's over there.
Not the case, but it is going to be interesting to see the reaction.
Lakers gave up 123 points to the Nets without any of their top stars, and afterwards, AD was not pleased with the Lakers' performance.
Oh, we're way behind. Getting movement on offense, quality shots, defensively, talking, getting our schemes right, rebounding. Very huge. We're not boxing out. And that was the main takeaway. Just, offensive come, we're not really too worried about it. Especially when we get Brian Melo, TA, Russ out there where we are. And we had to do a better job defensively, especially blocking out.
So, Ramona, do you share AD's concern after Lakers preseason game number 1?
No. What's he talking? They're fine. Like, he's the only guy who played even a little.
Yeah.
Only of the regulars. I actually thought they looked okay. I thought Malik Monk looked really good the other day.
Sure.
But I actually think it's a good sign that Anthony Davis is saying those words.
Bingo.
Because he's got a sense of urgency. And it reminds, I've said this before, it's almost like if you close your eyes, last year didn't happen.
Yeah.
Like, the Lakers are back to that 2020 team that won the championship, where they're fired up, they're hungry, they're not coming off that really short layoff. Where I was talking to a coach yesterday on the Lakers where they said, that short layoff after the bubble, they were fried. And I think that team did not have the same spirit and hunger that they did in 2020. Whereas this year, they have the vets who are coming back are hungry because they didn't win last year and they had a nice long break. And then guys like Russ, Carmelo, DeAndre Jordan, they haven't won. And they have the hunger of veterans who are here to win a ring. And so they really have a good spirit to them. Anthony Davis is right in that they look behind. But look at the schedule coming up for the Lakers, okay, George? Their first 10 games, I went through to look at the schedule, and that looks like a team that could easily start 9-1, 8-2. Mm-hmm. Look at the schedule.
Yeah.
Okay, the first 3 games, those are tough games. So let's say they go 2-1 in those 3.
Yeah.
look at that strip.
A lot of
Thunder,
winnable
Cavs,
games.
Rockets. That should be 5 wins right there.
Yeah.
That game against the Trailblazers, that'll be a tough one.
Yeah.
But they have a really easy opening schedule in terms of win percentage last season. And it's always like that for teams that are going to be on in the backloaded schedule after the Super Bowl.
Tons of ABC
Lakers,
games,
Warriors,
nationally
Nets,
televised
ABC,
games.
So
Yeah.
this early part of the schedule for a team that doesn't have a lot of returners, that has a lot of new guys, like this is a great way to start.
Speaking of new guys, a lot of new guys, I believe 11 new players on this particular roster, Clinton. What do you make of the fit?
I'd like to see them play a little in the preseason. I mean, honestly, I understand that the schedule is soft and so on and so forth, but we still don't really know. And it's a little confusing. AD says nothing's going right. LeBron says the practices have been better than ever. So how about we get a product together on the court so we can at least have an idea of what the big three is going to be or plus one is going to be. And look, I'm not really certain that that'll happen in the preseason, but I'd like to see it happen once. Give me a quarter. Give me a half. You know what I mean?
I think it will.
Show me what it looks like. How much are we going to see? I'm wondering because, if AD's saying this now and LeBron's saying this then, I'm as excited as I've been to see this Laker team in a long time because of exactly what you said. They seem to be aligning.
I would expect, and Ramona, you tell me because you've covered this team a lot longer than I have, I expect them to probably play a couple of games, 2 or 3 games together, a few minutes here and there, and then that last one, everyone will basically take off again. But those last, I guess those 3 or 4 last games, they'll play 2 or 3 of those.
Look, I don't think AD and LeBron or Russ, they don't all need to play together in the preseason games. They play plenty in practices. What the Lakers are trying to get out of this preseason is to see which one of the role players that they sign. Kendrick Nunn, Wayne Ellington, Halen Horton-Tucker. He was there, right? He's not paid like a role player, okay? He's going to be a big player for that. They want to see which of those guys is shining. They want to get a feel for those guys. And you saw some big minutes for DeAndre Jordan, for Dwight Howard yesterday. They're putting the rest of the team out there to see what they have in a lot of the new guys. And so LeBron, AD, it's nice that AD played a quarter. He doesn't need to.
After that,
fine.
We'll see. We'll see.
They're fine.
No big deal. All right. Meanwhile, the Nets beat the Lakers so decisively on Sunday that AD is questioning where his team is at already. And we'll go through the best images of the NBA season with historic NBA photographer Andrew Bernstein. Plus, after Brady's successful return to New England, what will be the most anticipated NBA reunion this coming season? No case of the Mondays here. The Jump starts right now. Hey, what's up, people in the studio with me? How about that?
Here and here and
We're joined in studio by ESPN NBA reporter Ramona Shelburne and the Undefeated's Clinton Yates. Thank you guys for hanging out, of course.
Yeah.
And yes, there was actual NBA basketball on Sunday. Without Russ and LeBron, the Lakers took on the Nets without KD, Harden, and Kyrie. The Nets won easily, but the focus stayed on what Kyrie's availability could be when Brooklyn's season begins in a couple of weeks. Steve Nash told reporters post-game he had no update on Kyrie's status playing in the preseason and beyond to this point. So today, Tim Bontemps and Bobby Marks report that the NBA and NBA Players Association agreed to a salary reduction for games missed in cities with vaccine mandates, which currently include New York and San Francisco. According to their sources, players will lose just over 1% of their salary for each game missed. For Kyrie Irving, that would mean nearly $381,000 per game if he misses a home game. Ramona, will this agreement with the NBAPA alter Kyrie's outlook?
Well, it altered Andrew Wiggins' outlook. I mean, I don't know what it means for Kyrie. That'll be up to him. I think of all the players that we've heard from so far, he seems fairly entrenched in his position. And it was interesting, George. I was at the game yesterday, and you saw the Nets all practicing together in San Diego all week. They had a really nice training camp. Everybody talked about how hard it was, how fun it was to play all of them together. They were sick of playing each other by the end of the week because they were just going against each other all the time. But Kyrie could have played in that game yesterday because it was in Los Angeles. There's not the same mandate here in Los Angeles. And because he's not going to practice when they go back to Brooklyn or play when they go back to Brooklyn, it's almost like you have the Kyrie on games and the Kyrie off games. Yesterday would have been a good opportunity to put him out there, but Steve Nash essentially said, that was never consideration. We weren't playing James Harden or Kevin Durant or Kyrie in this game. And it was interesting because I think they have a pretty good idea of how they want to play. They have a pretty good idea of what this team is going to look like. The question is it going to look like that for half the season? Or will it look like that for all of this season?
Yeah. Clinton, what do you make of all this?
I'm sorry. I can't take seriously the notion that Kyrie Irving just might miss half the games because he's not going to get vaccinated. I mean, to me, that on a leadership level is kind of unconscionable when you think about what it is this team is trying to do. They've got a real shot to win an NBA title, and to think that he's going to be so dug in on his stance like this, it's hard to understand because, listen, we can argue back and forth about the safety measures, but the bottom line is that if you're not vaccinated, you can't play basketball. You know what I mean? And I think from just a player, hooper standpoint, I think he's eventually going to give in. I think there's an outside chance that maybe he is vaccinated and he's just trying to make some larger point to the media about privacy and so on and so forth. But if I'm a Nets fan, this is devastating. We're coming up on the season now, and guys aren't even playing ball because of things that are unrelated on some levels. Hate to see it.
You know, and right now, George, it's LA and it's San Francisco and New York, but the expectation around the league is that that kind of mandate could go into other markets as well throughout this year. So we're talking about how, and I mean, it's a funny irony. It's not funny for the teams or the players involved, but theoretically, Kyrie could play when they go through San Francisco because he'd be a visiting player, but not in Brooklyn, okay? Because it only affects the home players. But I think the expectation is that that is going to be more of the norm as this season goes on. And so we're talking about half the home games because he plays in New York and there's a government mandate there. But that could expand.
Yeah.
How do his teteammates feel about this? Do we have any sense, or the coaching staff and the organization?
Look, when Steve Nash answered that question, it was less than 3 seconds.
Yeah.
I don't want to talk about this. I don't have anything there for you on it. They don't want this to become a distraction, even though it is. You could not want somebody to be a distraction, and it's a distraction. But they're doing their best to just move along and play the way they play the way they're going to have to play, regardless of whether he's there or not. But I really got the sense when they were down in San Diego, they went to Joe Tsai, the owner of the team. He has a house down in La Jolla. They went and had a team bonding experience. Right. They've got to do things as a team this year because the rules are so much more relaxed in terms of COVID protocols that nobody got to do last year. And I think they have been able to build a sense of camaraderie, even despite Kyrie not being able to play at home or practice at home.
I would say it's a little bit more than a distraction at this point. You know what I'm saying? It's a legitimate availability thing that affects whether or not this team is going to be able to win going forward. I think distraction is a massive understatement.
Let's move forward here after an opening week of camp where Andrew Wiggins explained his reasoning to not be vaccinated. Steve Kerr confirmed Sunday that Wiggins is now vaccinated and expects to be clear to play home games once the season starts in San Francisco. Golden State's home opener is against the Clippers, October 21st on ESPN here. And Clinton, is this a matter of money overcoming concerns for Wiggins? What do you make of it?
I think this is a guy who just kind of grew up on this one. You know, we saw a couple different things in terms of him coming out in the public and stating his thoughts on what was going to happen. And then he tried to sort of sneak that religious exemption by and got roundly mocked by a lot of people in public, and then came to a decision that, once again, I think was a basketball one. When you saw what Kerr said, he just said, listen, I want to talk about this anymore. You know what I mean? Just like Steve Nash. It's like, can we get this over with? But again, the power of pressure in certain matters, and in this case, public health, I think really affected him. You know, he's a guy that was an everyday player for him, a durable guy. But when you come out there and try to act like that, and then everybody says, listen, man, this is not what you're going to do. This doesn't make sense. Change his mind, and I think it's a healthier decision. I hope that works out for the Warriors.
You know, George, in the NFL, they reframe the issue of vaccination as availability and accountability to your teammates. And I think when I heard Wiggins talk last week, and he said it was my decision or my problem, not yours, and it felt like it was very personal for him in the sense that he didn't want to do something he didn't want to do. But if you reframe that, and I think that's how his Warriors teammates were talking about it, is we need you, man. Right. We need you out there. And are you available to us or not? And I think the more the NBA goes in this direction, the more you'll see you saw even last week, it went from 90% of players who had got at least their first shot to 95.
Right, Woj reported that.
Yeah. There's going to be that trickle.
95% of players have been
vaccinated. Yeah, at least the first shot. Not fully vaccinated, but at least the first shot. And it's going in that direction. And look, there's a nice way to do it where you incentivize people. Like they're not testing every day. If you're vaccinated, you don't have to test every day. Yeah. You can go out on the road, you can see people, you can do things, you can kind of almost get back to normal. But if you are vaccinated, they make it really uncomfortable for you. And so it's that's how the NBA has set this up. But in these two markets, New York and San Francisco, you lose money.
Yeah.
That gets your attention.
Yeah, that would change things for sure, and it has perhaps with Andrew Wiggins. So, all right, back to Sunday's game where LeBron and Russ didn't play. Anthony Davis